Okay, I'm going to tell you some more about cardboard and cutting cardboard, and maybe we'll talk about gluing some cardboard. Um, I'm sorry that in the last video, partway through, I adjusted the focus for something up close, and then the rest of the video was down here and out of focus, so I'm going to try not to do that this time. One of the things I'm going to tell you or show you is sometimes when you're trying to make things that are nice and square and rectangular, you need to square up your material. This looks a bit square, but it may not be as square as we need it. And you might want to take advantage of this grid on the cutting mat. I can pick up a line on here, and by holding the cardboard in position and lining up the ruler with the line on the cutting mat, I can make one edge line up with this grid, and then without changing the position of the cardboard, then I can bring the ruler over here and line up with another line. And then, because the grid on the cutting mat is quite square, I will now know that this corner is now perfectly 90 degrees or square, which might be very useful if you're making some structure that needs it. This is a tool called a square, and we can check our work anytime with a square. This is one kind of square, or this actually, we saw this in the drawing lesson. This is another kind of square, and here I got lots of squares. Here's another kind of square. Okay, but and now I'm still holding it in this position. There's something else I can do. I can actually use this to cut another size. So let's say this I think is a metric grid on this cutting mat. So I can actually use it to make a measurement if I want. My drawings don't tend to be metric, but yours might. I borrowed this mat from someone else, but this allows me to use the cutting mat to actually measure. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So this is now 8 centimeters wide, and I didn't have to use a ruler for that, right? This is quite accurate. Okay. Now, in a happy world, if I'm doing my measurements of my tool in inches, and I would use a graph paper that's in inches, and I would also get a cutting mat that is in inches. I'm not sure you can get one, but that would be nice if I could. In the last episode, I made this thing here where this curves around into a corner. I'm going to show you another way of doing it. This curving part here is made to curve by cutting through this surface here to allow it to open and make that radius. Okay, it won't curve in the other direction; it resists it. Okay, but there is another way of doing it. We could take this paper, because this paper is in the way. So what we could do is we can actually peel this paper off, and then it will curve in this direction. We can see that because paper that has a single face will do that. Okay, so we can get rid of this paper, or what we can do is take another tool that could be quite useful. Just take a regular butter knife, and we can crush this wood in. Not wood, sorry, I'm a woodworker. Crush that cardboard in so that it doesn't hit each other. Let's see if this works. There, now it curves in, okay? And we get this nice smooth surface on the outside, which could be quite useful. And then again, we can take our ruler and cut a bit off this back edge to make the tab. Okay, we could even make it even wider. Let's make it wider and see what happens then. And we'll even use the butter knife to help peel some of this paper off. Is that a mistake? Sometimes this comes off more easily than other times. He's still on camera. Pull this stuff off. sharper edge here. Get rid of this stuff. So now this can curve around here like this. Okay, and I have this little tab here. I could maybe use my knife to tailor this. Let's see, how could I do this? I'll just cut these out. Oh, maybe I shouldn't have started up that high. I should have started up only a little bit higher. So now these are like flaps. I put this together like this. Right. Now I could actually glue this and fold this down. So that could actually help with gluing. And then these can fold down like that too. Can you see how that can work? To tailor that edge and make it nice and neat. I'd have to pull it in a bit nicer. But it's hard on camera. But I think you get the idea. Something else I wanted to show you is these corrugations have this look on this side, but on this side you don't get that look. You get a very different look. But that's not the only way you can work. If I cut this at a 45-degree angle, 45-degree angle would occur if I, oops, let me just reach my pencil over here. Take my earbuds out. If I measured over, let's say, 1.5 inches this way, or any amount, and the same amount over here on that square corner, then connecting those two points would give me a 45-degree angle. Okay? And then I would get a very different look to the cardboard there. Very interesting. So any of these angles would give me a very different appearance on that edge. Just doing another arbitrary angle, and then you get that wave extending in a nice way. Try it some more. Go further on an angle, and what do we get? Okay, an even different sort of wave. Okay, so these kinds of textures and surfaces are, you know, potential possibilities for working with, getting that texture to simulate maybe some surface on the model that you're making. Sometime if you want to bend a corner, let's try something like this. I'm going to move this up like this. Let's take the same amount, 1.5 inches and 1.5 inches. Make a strip that's that wide. We used that before, so we'll try it again. If we wanted to make a square corner and maybe even reinforce it, we used you know, a round corner like this before. We can do the same thing this way, and I think I did show you how, you know, we can use the square to make this nice and square. Line this up here. And then this will fold back like that. And then we can use this to reinforce it like that if you want. You can cut the tab in there, like cut away some of this material if you want, for this to fit inside there, or you can cut away some of this material so this flaps and wraps around there. Okay, but we do have this kind of weird corner on this side. We did earlier show you how you can crush this paper in and allow that to move this way. So that gives you a sharper corner there in which you can, again, reinforce it. Okay. Other ways of bending are you could just take a straight edge and just run the butter knife over it. Let's say we want to make sure this is nice and square, so we might use our pencil, if I can find it, and make that a nice square surface. You can also do that with the grid on the cutting mat. You could line this edge up with a line on the grid, and then line your ruler up with the grid going in the other direction. And then instead of using the sharp knife, use a dull butter knife or even the back side and just crunch it down a little bit. Don't cut through it. And in that will allow you to bend it. Okay, and you maintain some strength because there's more paper there. Okay. Another way of working a corner is, let's say we take this and run this. I'm going to use the width of the ruler to help me draw a parallel line. There and here. Okay. Now I'm going to take this straight edge and I'm going to just push this down a little bit. Try to crease it with the dull knife. Okay. So by pushing that down like that, and maybe even using the ruler to help me bend it, I can control bend it in a very precise location right there. And I can do it the same way the other way. I'm going to push it down this way. So I'm not cutting, I'm just crushing the paper in a very straight, controlled line. And I can bend it this way. Okay, so I can bend it this way, and I can bend it this way. If I want to tailor this into a corner, what I can do is take my straight edge and cut this corner right here, or this little surface here, just this part, and then I can fold this up, this over, and this over like that. And I could glue that together like that and make a nice strong corner. Could also be on the inside perhaps if you wanted. But it does look a little chunky, right? So we can use our trick with the flap. I'm going to cut this just through the top surface, not going all the way through. And then I'm going to peel this off. So I'll take this paper off, if I can, very gently. Just trimmed my nails today. I wish I had longer fingernails. If you have long fingernails, this will be easier. To cut this just a little bit more. I have to cut through the second layer, but not the third layer. There. Okay, you can pick this off if you want. So now I have this flap of paper there, which I can use to glue around. Okay, so I can glue that like that, and that will hold it quite nicely. And it won't be all that chunky. Okay, let's try using some glue. I have some white glue here, all-purpose white glue. I find it more convenient if I put it in a jar. And I have a brush here, and I'm going to get a little bit of glue, and I'm going to maybe work on top of another surface. I'm going to spread some glue on here. I'm not going to put much glue on. Try to keep it quite sparing. I'm not going to move it around, so I don't want to get glue on the back side. Just a little bit of glue. If your glue is very wet and you leave it out in a jar like this, after a while you'll find that the glue gets a bit heavier and will stick a bit faster. So I have a jar of glue, and I have another jar in which I can just throw the brush. And then at the end of the day, I just throw some water in there and clean that up. So I can put this together like this, and just wrap this around like that, and just even it out. Push it down and hold it. Okay, you might get a square to make sure this is nice and even. But because I used very little bit of glue, I wasn't throwing it all over the place, that holds together quite nicely. And I don't have to wait too long. Okay, just watch it, because it might come apart on you. I haven't done this, I haven't done this for a while, so sometimes you have to get in certain kind of a groove. and that holds it. Okay. Sometimes you want to reinforce it. You can reinforce it with something like this. Looks like I'm going to have to trim this a little bit. Just make a little mark here. There. And there. And I can reinforce it with a bit of glue. Actually, it's the width of my ruler. Could use that. This way and this way. Alright, so I can reinforce this. I can put a bit of glue in here. I mean, you might have another corner and you wouldn't need it. But let's say I needed to do something like that. Now, another way of doing this would be hard to glue this and this with white glue because there's not a lot of surface area there. Now, I could have left extra and then peeled away a flap. So if there would be a flap that turned over there. What would that look like? That would look like what? Well, let's see. I can just do it with this piece. I'll make it a smaller piece this way and this way. This would be a little more tedious, but you know, if you're purist about this, this might work nicely. Get my knife underneath here to separate it. Okay, maybe I'll cut this corner away here like this, and this corner away here like this. Okay, so now I have a flap here, and a flap here. And I can use those flaps to glue this in place with the white glue. Okay, so we can try that. Oops, there's a glue there. Oops, too much glue. Just a little bit of glue. Not very much. When you're reinforcing things, sometimes it just means you need to build up a lot of reinforcement. So put this in place like this, and press this down, and hold it. Okay, hold it for a while, and then that will hold it in place. That's using white glue. Lots of different ways of using white glue. Increasing the surface area works well, and using the glue sparingly. Okay, and being a bit patient. Hopefully that will hold now. I might need to hold it a bit longer, but we'll try it. Another way of putting in a brace on the inside, let's cut another corner here, would be to use hot glue. I'm going to show you hot glue just because, you know, it can be frustrating to do a lot with white glue. I don't mind if you use hot glue, but I don't want to see it. I don't want to see any of the glue. So on the interior structures, you might be able to use some hot glue. So this is a hot glue gun, and there's hot glue sticking out of the back, and you pull this trigger and the glue is squeezed out this hot nozzle. And the hot nozzle is very hot, so you want to be very, very careful with that. And one way of doing it is just to, I might work over top of something, so if it drips out, it won't. Let me just get some glue going here. There, okay. So it's going to come out in a blob. You want to try to be neat and tidy with hot glue. Sometimes you get these strings going all over the place. You want to avoid having those strings go all over the place. And then without much delay, you've got to get this brace in place. Okay, and just put that in place like that. Just hold it for a second and it'll hold. Okay. Another way of using hot glue is if you can hold it in place, then you can just, while it's in place, run a bead of hot glue in the corner, like that, and like that. And that will hold. Now this is very visible. That's quite ugly. But if it's on the inside of a structure and you don't see any of the glue on the outside, you know, I think that can be acceptable. But this way works quite nicely and is quite strong. This might be the way you want to go. Now notice I had a little working spot. I don't want to get that on anything, so I'm going to put that away. And over here on the side, I'll show you, I keep my hot glue gun on a little table of cardboard so that, you know, sometimes glue leaks out, and it leaks out in this area and it doesn't get all over stuff I don't want to get it all over on. Okay, so maybe that's all for this video. I will end this and see if there's more that I'm going to do in the next video. Okay, 20 minutes. I guess that's long enough.